Have you ever had something that you desperately need to say to your friends, something that might be uncomfortable or difficult, something that happened, something that you saw, something that you need to get off your chest, but you have been absolutely terrified to do it? I have been there, believe me. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about how to have those tough conversations with the people that matter to us most. It could be something that you're worried about in your friendship. It could be about a way that they've harmed you. It could be about something that you're concerned about that they're doing. It could be anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. It's a tough thing to have that conversation. And today, I'm going to show you how to show up in those conversations, how to show up before them, how to show up during them, and most importantly, how to show up after them. And I promise this, if you are willing to do the work and check out this video, try these tips, not only will you be able to have more difficult conversations with friends that matter, but you can actually grow closer from the tough times. Check it out. Welcome back to another episode of Feel Better, Do Better. My name is Donald Friend, and I care about you, how you're feeling, and how you are doing. We're going to continue our conversation about friendships, and today's topic is one that a lot of young people ask me about. How do I have tough conversations with my friends? In today's video, I'm going to break it down for you into 3 important steps, and this is very important to know. I just said important twice because it is that important. It's very important to know because skipping any of these steps can put you in a situation where the conversation can go left. And if you don't know what that means we wanted the conversation to go one way and it went the complete opposite way. So we're going to break it down into what do we do before we have the tough conversation? How do we show up in that tough conversation? And the last part, which is one that people tend to forget or tend to ignore, is how do we follow up? What's the after that we do when having this tough conversation? Let's start with thinking about the before. But before we talk about the before, I just want to say how important it is to really think about how you want to enter a tough conversation with one of your friends. I know this because personally, I've had very successful times where I've done all 3 of these things and the conversations went tough, but we came out of it way stronger than we went in. But also, I've had times where I didn't really think about what I was doing. I was acting from emotions and things did not go so well. It's a little bit hard to say this part. It's a little bit embarrassing. I don't know if this person even knows that I do this work or if they'll ever see this. So I'm not going to give too much detail to it, but I just want to let you know that I was once having a really tough time with one of my friends who I really cared about, who I felt like was being very selfish. They were hyper-focused on themselves. I didn't really know what was going on with them, but it just felt like anytime anyone needed them, they were like, no, I can't help you, sorry. And so instead of me really thinking about what was going on, before I talked to them, I kind of approached them and had the conversation without them being ready or prepared, and it did not go how I wanted it to at all. In fact, it went the complete opposite. I saw my friend, we were trying to talk. I could tell that they weren't really paying attention to me, and so I got mad, which was the first thing that went wrong. I was activated, right? Like, think about Super Saiyan. If I knew how to edit Super Saiyan hair, and I would do think about that. When you're activated, it's really hard to think clearly. And so instead of me saying, all right, obviously something's going on with them, I was feeling hurt and I just jumped in. What ended up happening was I kind of attacked that person. I wasn't being really considerate of what they were going through. And they, after hearing everything I had to say, were like, cool, bye. I don't want to deal with you. That was really frustrating. And later on, I found through a mutual friend that they were going through a super, super tough time with their mental health. No one really knew that they were going through that. And instead of me understanding that maybe that wasn't the best time to bring that conversation up or to surprise attack them with that conversation, it really pushed them further away from me. They felt attacked. They didn't feel seen. And if I would have known that that's what they were going through, I would have approached it differently, or I would have waited to think about when's the best time to have this conversation. So let's jump into it. We are going to talk about the before, what to do to set you up for success and to set your friend up for success before you actually start to have that conversation. All right, first things first, let's talk about the before. if I'm in a situation where something's going on with my friend and I need to have a tough conversation about them, I need to think about what is going on. I need to think about what harm is being done, what am I concerned about, what event happened that I wanted to discuss, but basically knowing this is a specific thing. Because if you go in and you just say, I'm upset or I'm mad at you, but you can't acknowledge or pick out what it is that happened, you're already starting off on shaky ground. So thinking about what was the harm or what behaviors is happening in that relationship that is causing you to struggle or causing your relationship to suffer. I think it's important to ask yourself, like, what do you want from this conversation? Do you want them to acknowledge your feelings? Do you want you all to become closer? Do you want to ask for a specific type of support? Thinking about what you want can help you really go in with clear objectives. And I know this sounds weird. It's kind of like we're going through this huge procedure, but when people are upset and when people feel attacked, it's very hard to have honest and open conversations that don't spiral into everyone just being super upset. And so it may seem like a lot, but it is a skill. So being able to say, this thing is happening, it's bothering me, or this is what I need, or this is what I need to ask from them can help you kind of be on the right path before you even get the conversation started. So the next one can feel weird. I know that talking like this can feel weird. And again, adjust it to whatever you need to. So how you sound feels real instead of it like sounding like you're reading a book. I would like to initiate a conversation with you. If you do that and you've never talked like that with your friends before, it might feel really weird. But it is super important to think about when is a time that both of us can be ready to have this conversation. And it can literally just be like, hey, I really need to talk to you about something. Do you have some time this week that we can talk? Just a simple thing like that. Because if you don't ask when it's a good time for the other person, it might be a good time for you. But like I said in my story earlier, it was a really bad time for my friend. A lot of really rough stuff was happening to them that week. And the last thing that they needed was to feel attacked by someone that they felt like cared about them. If I would have known that better, I would have picked a different time, or I would have given them the option to know that I do want to have this conversation, but I want to make sure that we're doing it in a time that we both feel comfortable. It's also important to remember that if you are activated, remember like Super Saiyan mode. Imagine like me activated. If you do it in an activated mode, it's really hard to do like the kind of deeper stuff that we need to do, to be respectful, to be open, to be honest. If we're super upset, if we're in the middle of arguing with each other and then we say, okay, no, we need to have a serious conversation, we're coming into it with our fists up. And we never want to come into a situation with our friends where our fists feel like we're up, because that feels like it's just going into a fight. And so setting some time aside to say, hey, I really need to talk to you. I need to have a tough conversation with you. Can you make some time for me? That's important. If they say no, that's telling. If they say that they don't want to have this conversation with you, then it's up to you to decide, is it worth it? Is it worth continuing this relationship if I don't address this thing? All right, you have prepped yourself. You know what you need to address. You all have picked a time. That is kind of the easy part. Now we're getting into the messy part where things can feel really scary. You might say, yeah, it was easy to set a time. Now I'm terrified because I don't know how this conversation is going to go. And that is totally valid. It's okay to feel nervous or feel anxious about something when you don't know what the outcome is going to be. But the one thing that you can control always is you. So let's talk about it. How do we show up in these tough conversations in a way that keeps both my integrity and their integrity? So keep your integrity, keep their integrity, and we can walk away feeling like both of us were respected, seen, and heard in this tough conversation. Let's start with one of my favorite ones. I talked a little bit about this in our toxic friendship behavior, but I want to spend a little bit more time talking about it in a tough conversation. One thing that I've learned is that when people feel attacked, it's really hard for them to be open. Like if I'm being attacked, I'm going to put up a wall, right? I'm going to put up a wall because it hurts. I don't want to feel attacked. And a lot of times when we go into these conversations, we jump into you, you're this, you're this, you're this. And there's two ways that I like to handle this. The first one is I call out the behavior instead of the person. Even though I'm still saying when you do this behavior, I'm focusing on the behavior. Because a behavior is something that someone can change. Maybe they don't realize that that thing that they're doing is causing you harm or causing themselves harm, right? So calling out the behavior is a lot easier to change than calling out a person. If you say you are this, you're selfish, you're this, you don't care, blah, 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 that's basically defining them and saying, this is who you are, this is how I see you, and that's going to create more disconnect. Remember, we're trying to bring people in. If your friend cares about you and they hear you say, this hurts when you do this, then hopefully, if they're a good friend or someone that you should continue to be friends with, they'll lean in. They'll come closer to you instead of going away because you're being honest with how you feel. Which leads me to my next part, using I feel statements. You may have heard this before. I know schools talk about this a lot, but it's hugely important. Instead of saying that this is how I see you and this is the truth, you are this, right? We can say, I feel this way. When you make fun of me for how I dress, I feel like less about myself. A simple statement like that. The behavior is, you always make fun of how I dress. The second thing is, I feel less than when you do that. It's a very simple thing. Instead of me being like, you're mean, you're awful to me all the time, right? You're calling out a specific thing and acknowledging what impact it has on you. Just like I did the other video, right? If we can acknowledge that our friends can be toxic, we also have to acknowledge that we can be toxic. And in a situation, even if you in your head really feel like you didn't do anything wrong, we still have to be open. We have to be open for their feelings and how their experiences are showing up for them, because they may bring something up that has nothing to do with you, but is kind of causing them to act that way. Or they could bring up something that you're doing, right, that may feel like they're trying to make an excuse, but to just be open and say, I hear you. If you're hoping for them to be willing to listen to you, you also have to be willing to listen to them. And then both of you have to be willing to take accountability for the harm that's been caused. Whether either of you meant to do it or not, right? Harm can be on purpose or it can be accidental, but it still hurts. And so allowing both people to say, here's how I feel, this is what hurts, or here's why I'm doing this, it allows for open communication. And then the last piece for during this conversation that I would really suggest is to ask for what you need. If you leave this conversation, it could be like, hey, stop doing this thing, or could you do this thing for me more? Like, can you check in on me more? Or can we spend more time together? Or can you stop making fun of the way I talk? Or can you get help and support for yourself, right? Having a specific thing that they can do that shows you and them that there's commitment, right? Meaning that me and you are in this together. If you have something that you can specifically say, it's easier for them to take that away, and it's easier for you to have a goal for where you want to go from here. I want to also offer one more tip that can be really helpful, and it's also something that may sound very difficult. Like I said in the first part, if you are activated, which means even in this conversation, if both of you start screaming at each other, you lose sight of what you're trying to do, that person is not willing to hear you out, or your feelings are getting to be too much, it's okay to tap out and be like, hey, this is not how I wanted this conversation to go. I need to step away for the sake of both of us, right? Until we can have the conversation we need to have. If every time you have that conversation, you both get activated, you could ask for support from someone else who might be able to hold that space for you all, whether it's a friend or a counselor or a parent that you trust, right? Or you can step away from it. If you are not able to have these tough conversations, again, decide, is this a relationship that I want to keep kind of causing harm or allowing harm to happen? Or is this a relationship that I'm willing to do like the hard work to move through it? Here we go. You made it through the tough conversation without arguing, without shouting, without ripping each other's eyebrows out, right? You got through the tough part. You all have asked for what you need. You've talked about the tough behaviors or the harm that's being done. You may think that it's over, but sometimes when we leave these conversations, we might think of other things that come up, or we might still have other feelings that maybe we didn't get off our chest. And so I want to talk about the last part, which is what do we do after we've had that tough conversation? Might not be the most popular thing to hear, but I'm always going to hope for what's best for you. I'm always going to try to give you tools to do what's best for you. And even though it may feel really harsh to step away from a relationship, sometimes when you try to have these tough conversations, people won't be ready to do it. People won't be ready. And that's a shame because that is what helps us grow closer. But if they're not willing to do it, you have to ask yourself, is this relationship worth me continuing to go through this? Or do I need to step away from this? Maybe it's like I need to take some time away from this person, or it could be I'm just completely done. With my friend earlier, they made that decision. They said the harm that I caused them, even though I didn't know that they were going through that, was too much. And at that point, they did not want to come back. I also didn't follow up. I didn't do the after part. I just kind of jumped into the during without any planning. And then afterwards, I didn't check in. I didn't take care of them. I didn't take care of myself the way I should. And so feelings got hurt, and then it just scrambled. If the conversation went well, great. And when I say well, it doesn't mean that you had to leave being like, we feel so happy, we feel so great. If you were both able to be open and honest, if you were able to hold each other accountable, which means I'm responsible for what I did, you're responsible for what you did, then I would follow up with gratitude. Gratitude is a way to let someone know that what they did for you had an impact on them. It could be as simple as, hey, I know we're still trying to get back to where we were, but I just need you to know it means a lot to me that you were willing to have that conversation. Just like that. Or if you notice that they're trying to do things differently, you can say, I really appreciate that you're stepping up. My boy, Andrew, whose name I will say, because we had several conversations like this, where we were able to do the before, during, and after. And one thing that I noticed, I said that I felt like he didn't do enough for me as a friend, and I was always doing stuff for him. And we had this tough conversation. I went on a trip, and when I came home, he had built a door for my bedroom. I'd always complained about the fact that my bedroom did not have a door. I kind of just said, okay, this is what it is. I didn't know how to make a door. I didn't know he knew how to make a door. But over the weekend, he heard me. He followed up and he made a door for my bedroom. And it was the moment that I knew, like, that's my brother. We had a tough conversation. I asked him to show up more for me. And then he did it just like that. But I had to acknowledge that and say, thank you, man. That means a lot to me. And so making sure that you recognize if they are putting effort in, if things feel like they're getting better, right, to thank them for that and let them know how much it means to you that you all are trying to do this together to get closer. That's how relationships grow. That's how conflict turns into compassion. That's how we can build deeper relationships with our friends, even when we go through tough stuff. My friends, I know having tough conversations with people you care about is tough. I know that it can make you feel anxious. I know that it can make you feel scared. But real relationships and real friendships take work and it takes effort. And sometimes we have to do the scary things to get the rewards. And I promise you that the next time this happens, if you try these steps, that you will have an opportunity to not only fix a situation that is hurting you all, but you can also create an opportunity for your relationships to get better. That's how you maintain long-time friendships. If you go through your life with a friend, you're gonna go through tough things. And to be able to be brave and to show up for yourself and to show up for them, that's how you feel better and that's how you do better. Until then, please keep up the good work. Make sure you check back next week where I'm gonna be doing a special video on one question that can help determine if a relationship is worth keeping or not. Until then, my friends, I am rooting for you. Bye.